Hi everyone, hope you guys are all having a great day today. In today's video, I'm going to cover the whole entire market in terms of economic calendar, S&P 500, Dow Jones, Nasdaq, specifically the ETFs, SPY, and QQQ. Going to do the US 10-year Treasury, crude oil, so on and so forth. How I believe the market will be moving in terms of based off, for example, tomorrow we have the most important thing, the Federal Reserve interest rate meeting decision. FOMC interest rate decision at 2 p.m. Then at 2:30 p.m. we have Jerome Powell speaking in terms of press conference. So the markets, for the most part, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, so please do your own due diligence and research before buying and selling. I believe the markets either will be flat, best case scenario for today by the close, or lower, more specifically lower in my opinion. But that is the case just because we're waiting on what the decision will be. And in my opinion, I think the decision will be essentially, for the most part, them saying that they still need to hit their target of 2% inflation, and that they don't rule out 1% interest or one interest rate cut. Like, they're not going to say that, but they're going to make it seem like for the market that one interest rate cut is still open by the end of the year, worst case scenario. And that is regardless, though, that even though that we saw the PCE number come in a little bit higher than expected, but again, that they took out for the PCE, they were looking at the core PCE, by the way, which had energy taken out, that was the biggest factor for CPI. But for the most part, I think they're going to be neutral and say they still need to hit their target and not rule out 1% interest rate. Not specifically say that, but keep the market kind of guessing that one interest rate cut will potentially could happen kind of thing, right? Now, in terms of U.S. Treasury, let me see, our economic news, first of all, we have at 8:30 a.m. employment cost index, previously 0.9%. This time around was expecting 1.0. Already came in at 1.1%. 9 a.m. we have S&P Case-Shiller home price index, 20 cities. 9:45 a.m. we have Chicago Business Barometer PMI. And at 10 a.m. we have consumer confidence. Again, the most important thing is tomorrow in terms of the Fed interest rate decision. U.S. Treasury, or 10-year U.S. Treasury is at 4.66%. Crude oil is at $83.15 per barrel. And in terms of the analysis, now for the Dow Jones first, we're at 38,238 points. If you look at the 5-year within this channel and all stuff, this dates back since April of 2021. Stuck within this channel, hit the resistance, upward trend resistance line, came down. We could bounce off the support level, but we could be heading back lower. In my opinion, I think once the interest rate decision comes out tomorrow, I think the market's going to start going up, just because I think for the most part they're going to be neutral and not shut down the fact that there will be an interest rate. In my opinion, I don't think there will be an interest rate cut this year, but that's just my opinion. But I don't think that they'll shut down the fact that there could be one within this year. So because of that, I think the markets will go up regardless. But 5-year chart shows MACD line, we're in the bearish movement, so heading to the more downside, hypothetically. That's more for the long term. In terms of 1-year chart, we are in the bullish movement, so hypothetically reversing to the upside kind of thing. And then before the markets, in terms of expecting for the interest rate cut and all stuff, or in terms of the decision, short term, the Dow Jones was kind of showing to the upside, but it's being reversed to the downside for the most part. So yes, it is in the bullish movement right now, MACD line, but it kind of shows that it's curving to the downside, heading to the bearish movement to more downside hypothetically. And I think that will be the case again for today. So 3-month chart as well to the downside, and then 1-month chart as well to the downside, already in the bearish movement. Now, technically, how low can it go for today? And well, I didn't assess this one just because, again, I more focus on the S&P and Nasdaq, so I apologize for that. But in worst case scenario, going off resistance and support level right about here, and somewhat support level right here, the lowest I could see it going down today personally is about 37,781 points. Do not see it going lower than that. But do not go off of this data, just because I apologize, I did not assess the Dow Jones fully, just because, again, people don't really trade the Dow Jones. They trade Nasdaq and S&P 500. So now looking at the QQQ, which is the Nasdaq ETF, again, like always, the 5-year chart, we've been in a channel since 2010, broke out since 2020 to 2022, right about here, but got underneath the channel back again, upward trend resistance line, got knocked down, heading to the downside, and potentially going to the upside, even though today is a little bit down. Again, this dates back since 2010, upward trend resistance line, and then the support level, upward trend support level right about here. Currently sitting at 431 points, $431 for the QQQ. 5-year chart is showing to the downside, bearish movement. 1-year chart, I believe it's curving to the upside. Yeah, bullish movement, showing that it's going to the upside. Again, I think it's more going to go to the upside after tomorrow. So by Thursday, the market should be heading up, in my opinion. But tomorrow, I should have probably clarified. Tomorrow will be downside, waiting for the interest rate, and then probably by 2:30, if everything's good, it'll probably head up, or by Thursday it'll head up. But 6-month chart showing to the downside, bearish movement, so arching down. Again, I'll show the channels and all that stuff. 3-month chart showing bearish movement as well, heading to the downside. So pretty much today's either going to be flat, best case scenario in my opinion, or head to the downside. But unless some news comes out in terms of what the Fed is expecting ahead of time somehow, that they release some information. But either way, currently, again, $431.55, and we were hitting that channel, the ceiling about $433, give or take, that I mentioned previously, and then we could find support at 430. So it technically doesn't have to be too low, even though we are in the negative already at $431.66 or something like that, give or take. But I believe we could find support at $430 price point, just because, in my opinion, I think the market already knows what the Fed's going to say. I don't think there's going to be anything of a surprise. If it were to go lower, then we'll start hitting the support levels and mainly moving averages of $427 and $428. And ultimately, if it goes horrendous, but the thing is though, the VIX volatility index, it's not really spiking up, so I don't expect major drops. But if we were, I'm pretty sure, in my opinion, we would find good amount of support at the $425, high $424 price point, hitting the moving average plus the support level that we've seen hit as a resistance and support multiple times with all these touch points. But again, I don't think we're going to go higher than 433, potentially find support at 430, and then don't go lower, any lower than 425, in my opinion, high 424, unless, again, something bad happens in terms of news, what the Fed will do, but that usually never happens. So I'm not expecting anything crazy. In terms of the SPY, so in terms of S&P 500 ETF, just same thing, 5-year chart, channel since 2010, did not break through though, so been hitting upward trend resistance line, getting knocked down, support level, upward trend, support level, so on and so forth. This is where we're sitting right now for the most part. MAC line showing downside for the long term for the 5-year chart. 1-year chart showing bullish movement, so going to the upside, even though, again, we're at $509.24 right now, so in the negative, again, waiting for the interest rate for the Fed meeting tomorrow. So I think for the most part, Thursday will be up, but that is just my opinion. And then for the 6-month chart, it is showing bearish movement, so to the downside. And then 3-month chart, so these are for more for the short term. 3-month chart, bearish movement to the downside, and 1-month chart, bearish movement to the downside as well. Now, if we go closer to see what's happening, we have this downward trend resistance line. By the way, we've hit multiple times, just like QQQ. I don't know if I showed it specifically, but I've showed it in my past videos. If we were to go to the upside, I'm just going to show the quick max, hypothetically, even if it was spike up today, which I doubt it will do it. But we're looking at $512, $515. I remember last time it was $513 when I checked it. But again, this moves to the downside. Like, the high gets lower and lower as we take longer to hit it. Doesn't mean that we'll never pass it. And just in terms of resistance level, it acts as resistance level. But sitting at $512 for the most part right now, if we were to spike up, maybe mid $512. But either way, right now we're hitting a resistance level that I mentioned earlier, about $510. I don't think we'll pass it. If we do, we'll be hitting the next level of mid $511. Yeah, $511 mid. And then I think for the most part, I'm going to cover the downside because I think that's what's going to happen. We are sitting at the support of $508. It's between $507 and $508. If we do drop lower than that, we will be hitting, pretty much we saw a big cluster about touch points right about here, which is the $505, which hits about the moving average. So ultimately, I think the lowest we would go for today, in my opinion, is $505 for the SPY, because we hit the moving averages plus a bunch of touch points we've seen earlier around the $505 price point. Again, it's not exact $505, but give or take around there. And then if we were to go lower dramatically, it would be the $503. We've seen resistance levels, touch point right about here, a couple support levels right about here, even though they broke through. But we have a bunch of moving averages plus support levels plus the other support level. So I do not think going lower than $503 is going to happen today at all. Maybe possibly tomorrow if If we see lower than 505, then I think we would probably break through 503 tomorrow potentially, but we'd have to assess it based off the MAC lines, and then moving averages, so on and so forth, and support levels where we're at. But for the most part, I do think we might close around 507, 508. If it gets really bad, 505, and that's just my opinion, I don't think any lower. But if it is lower than 503, that would be the case. In terms of high side, again, I don't think we're going to be higher than 510, but if we do, it'll be mid 511. I do not think we're going to hit this downward trend resistance level at the moment. Until, again, tomorrow, I think we'll be pretty much either neutral or the downside, because waiting for the 2 p.m. and then 2:30 p.m. could, either way, by the end of the day, though, the reaction will be different. So what I mean by tomorrow, I mean more of the morning part of the day until 2 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. And then after that, anything could happen because based off of what the Fed is going to state. And then by Thursday, I think for the most part, because what I'm anticipating is nothing crazy from the Fed, I think by Thursday we'll be heading to the upside. Again, we do have earnings this week for the most part, AMD, Amazon, Apple, so on and so forth, also other heavy hitters. So be on the lookout for that because they tend to move the markets. For example, Apple by the end of the week, that will move the market potentially if it's a crazy beat and all stuff. So yeah, that's basically it for the video today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully you guys like it. If you do, consider dropping a like. It does help the channel, so thank you so much for that. And I do upload these pretty much every single day. So if you wanted to be notified when the next time I do upload this video, consider subscribing to be notified when I do upload my next video. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.